The moment Eliza stepped into the reception hall in her borrowed emerald dress, every head turned. No one could have guessed that just 3 weeks earlier, she'd been sleeping under a highway overpass. Least of all my ex-wife, whose perfect day was about to take an unexpected turn that would change all our lives forever. If you're touched by this story of second chances and unexpected connections, please hit that like button and subscribe to see more real-life stories that remind us of our shared humanity. My name is Daniel Cooper, and at 42, I thought I had my life figured out. Divorced for 5 years, raising my 12-year-old daughter Lily on my own, and running a moderately successful architecture firm in Portland. When the invitation to my ex-wife Catherine's wedding arrived, I nearly threw it away. But Lily, with her unwavering optimism, insisted we should go. "Dad, it's important to show we're okay with Mom moving on," she said with that wisdom children sometimes possess that makes you wonder who's really raising whom. The invitation specified a +1, and Catherine had called personally to emphasize I should bring someone. It would make things less awkward, she'd said, though I suspected she just wanted to see if I'd moved on too. I hadn't dated seriously since our divorce. Between work and raising Lily, there hadn't been time. Or maybe that was just the excuse I told myself. It was a rainy Tuesday morning when I first noticed Eliza. I'd seen her before, of course, a fixture outside the coffee shop I frequented, quietly sitting with a cardboard sign and a gentle smile that seemed out of place given her circumstances. Unlike some of the more aggressive panhandlers downtown, she never approached people, never called out. She just sat with dignity, thanking anyone who dropped coins in her cup. That morning, the rain was coming down in sheets. I'd just finished a client meeting that had gone particularly well, and perhaps that's why I stopped instead of hurrying past as usual. She was huddled under the awning, her few possessions wrapped in plastic bags. "Would you like a coffee?" I asked, surprising myself. She looked up, raindrops clinging to her eyelashes. Despite the circumstances, her eyes were clear and intelligent. "That would be wonderful," she said, her voice softer and more articulate than I'd expected. I bought 2 coffees and, on impulse, a sandwich. When I returned, I sat down beside her on the wet bench. "You don't have to stay," she said, wrapping her fingers around the warm cup. "But thank you." "I'm Daniel," I said, extending my hand. "Eliza," she replied, her handshake firm despite her trembling from the cold. We talked for nearly an hour. She told me fragments of her story, a former elementary school teacher, a series of health problems, medical bills that drained her savings, and then the slow, inexorable slide into homelessness. No family to speak of, friends who had their own struggles. She'd been on the streets for 8 months. What struck me most was her lack of bitterness. "Everyone has their storms to weather," she said. "Mine just happened to wash away my roof." I left her my card that day, not really expecting anything to come of it. But 2 days later, my office phone rang. It was Eliza, calling from a community center. "I'm sorry to bother you," she said, "but there's a job fair tomorrow at the convention center, and I wondered if you might have any old business clothes I could borrow." I didn't, but my sister Rebecca might. One call later, and Rebecca was not only offering clothes but insisting on meeting Eliza herself. "I'll take her shopping," she declared. "Every woman deserves a decent outfit for a job interview." That evening, I picked Eliza up from the shelter where she occasionally stayed and brought her to Rebecca's. My sister, always the hurricane of efficiency, had already laid out 3 professional outfits and was heating up leftovers from her family dinner. "You're both too kind," Eliza said, looking overwhelmed by the simple act of human decency. "Nonsense," Rebecca replied. "Now eat something while I find you a decent pair of shoes." Over the next 2 weeks, something unexpected happened. Eliza got a part-time position at the library, thanks to her background in education. The community center helped her secure temporary housing. And somehow, she became a regular part of our lives. She helped Lily with her reading assignments. She brought homemade cookies to thank Rebecca. She even helped me organize my chaotic filing system at the office when she had a free afternoon. "She's nice, Dad," Lily said one evening as I tucked her in. "She doesn't look at me like I'm broken because Mom left." I hadn't realized people did that, and the thought broke my heart a little. The wedding was approaching, and I still hadn't found a date. The thought of going alone made my stomach knot with anxiety. Catherine's new husband was a successful surgeon, and I knew the wedding would be filled with their accomplished friends. The prospect of standing alone at the bar while everyone whispered about "poor Daniel" was unbearable. It was Lily who suggested it first. "Why don't you take Eliza?" The idea seemed absurd initially. Take a woman I barely knew, who until recently had been homeless, to my ex-wife's lavish wedding? But the more I thought about it, the more it made a strange kind of sense. Eliza was intelligent, well-spoken, and with Rebecca's help, she'd rebuilt a small wardrobe. More importantly, she was kind, and I enjoyed her company. There was no romantic pretense between us, just two people who had found an unexpected friendship. When I asked her, sitting on the same bench where we'd first shared coffee, she laughed. "Are you serious? Me, at a fancy wedding?" "Completely serious," I replied. "It would be doing me a favor, honestly." She studied my face for a long moment. "You're not ashamed to bring someone like me? Someone like you? You mean someone intelligent, resilient, and kind? Why would I be ashamed of that?" Her eyes welled up, and she quickly looked away. "Okay," she said finally. "But I have nothing to wear to something like that." Rebecca, of course, had a solution. Her best friend owned a boutique and would lend Eliza a dress. "Consider it a dress rehearsal for your new life," my sister said with characteristic directness. The day of the wedding arrived with perfect weather and my mounting anxiety. Lily was excited, already dressed in her new blue dress and chattering about seeing her cousins. I adjusted my tie for the 10th time when the doorbell rang. I opened the door and momentarily didn't recognize the woman standing there. Eliza's usually pulled-back hair fell in soft waves around her shoulders. The emerald dress Rebecca had chosen complemented her eyes perfectly. But it was more than the clothes. She stood differently, with a confidence I hadn't seen before. "You look beautiful," I said, meaning it completely. She smiled, a hint of her old shyness returning. "Your sister is a miracle worker." "The miracle was already there," I replied. "She just added sequins." The ceremony was held in the botanical gardens, with white chairs arranged in neat rows and an arbor draped with flowers. Catherine was radiant as she walked down the aisle to her new beginning. I felt a surprising lack of pain watching her, just a gentle acknowledgement that our chapter had closed, making way for new stories. At the reception, Eliza charmed everyone she met. She discussed classic literature with Catherine's professor father, swapped teaching stories with the bride's colleagues, and even got my usually stoic brother-in-law laughing with her dry wit. Lily stayed close to her, introducing her proudly to school friends as "my dad's friend Eliza who knows everything about books." I was getting drinks at the bar when Catherine approached, stunning in her wedding gown. "She's lovely, Daniel," she said, nodding toward Eliza, who was teaching Lily and some other children what appeared to be an elaborate hand-clapping game. "She is," I agreed. "How long have you been seeing her?" I considered correcting her assumption but instead just said, "We're still getting to know each other." Catherine smiled, a genuine one without the tension that had marked the end of our marriage. "I'm glad. You deserve someone who makes you smile like that." I hadn't realized I was smiling. The evening progressed with dinner and dancing. Eliza was hesitant at first, but after Lily dragged her onto the dance floor for a fast song, she relaxed. When a slower song began, I found myself extending my hand to her. "I should warn you, I'm not very good at this," she said as she stepped into my arms. "That makes two of us," I replied. As we swayed awkwardly to the music, she looked up at me. Thank you for today. For everything, really. You and your family have shown me such kindness when I'd almost forgotten it existed. You make it easy to be kind, I said simply. The moment might have deepened, but we were interrupted by a commotion near the cake table. Catherine's new mother-in-law had fainted in the summer heat. As guests crowded around in concern, Eliza quietly moved through them. Give her some space, please, she said with calm authority. She knelt beside the elderly woman, checking her pulse and loosening her collar. Has anyone called an ambulance? Within moments, she had the situation under control, directing someone to bring water, elevating the woman's feet, and keeping everyone calm until the paramedics arrived. They confirmed it was just heat exhaustion and dehydration, nothing serious. Catherine's new husband looked at Eliza with undisguised gratitude. Are you a nurse? Former teacher, she replied. But we had good first aid training. The incident became the talk of the reception. Daniel's date saved the day, I overheard more than once. Eliza tried to downplay it, but I could see she was touched by the appreciation. As the evening wound down, Catherine found us again. I understand you're a teacher, she said to Eliza. I was, Eliza replied. I'm working at the library now, but hoping to get back into education eventually. Catherine nodded thoughtfully. I serve on the board of a literacy nonprofit that's looking for a program coordinator. Someone with teaching experience who understands the challenges some of our clients face. She glanced meaningfully at me, and I realized she knew, or had guessed, something of Eliza's recent circumstances. Would you be interested in hearing more about it? Eliza's composure finally broke, her eyes filling with tears. I would be very interested, she managed to say. Later, as we drove home with a sleeping Lily in the back seat, Eliza was quiet, looking out at the city lights. Penny for your thoughts, I said softly. I keep waiting to wake up, she replied. 3 weeks ago, I was invisible. People would look right through me on the street. And today, I danced at a beautiful wedding, may have a job opportunity, and... She paused, and I have friends. Real friends. You were never invisible, I said. Some of us just weren't looking properly. 6 months later, Eliza is thriving as the program coordinator for Catherine's literacy nonprofit. She has her own apartment now, small but filled with books and plants. Lily spends every Tuesday afternoon with her, baking cookies and working on a secret project they refused to tell me about. Rebecca and Eliza have become running partners, pounding the same streets Eliza once slept near. As for me, I'm learning that second chances come in unexpected packages. Eliza and I are taking things slowly, enjoying the simple pleasure of discovering each other without pressure or expectations. Last week, I took her back to that coffee shop and the bench where we first talked. I'd had the bench plaque engraved, "Where stories begin again." Sometimes the most beautiful journeys start when we simply stop to offer someone a cup of coffee in the rain. If this story touched your heart, please remember to like and subscribe for more content that celebrates the unexpected connections that make life meaningful. Sometimes the most profound changes happen when we open our doors, and hearts, to those society has forgotten.